Hey everyone. So today we are going to start learning React Native, right? So why did we choose React Native? Why not some other alternative out there, right? We have a lot of alternatives. For example, we have Flutter by Google, we have Ionic, we have native app development technologies such as Android Studio with Kotlin, Swift for Xcode and so on and so forth, right? So why did we choose React Native here? Plain and simple, React Native is a library, is a framework created by Facebook to create hybrid mobile applications. Right? So what are hybrid mobile applications? Basically, they are applications which are run with a single code base, but on multiple platforms. So for example, in the olden days, what you need to do is, for developing an app on Android, you would have to write the code in Android, in Java, or right now today in Kotlin. And for developing an app in iOS, you would need to write the same different code base using some language called Swift UI, or in the olden days, something called as Objective-C, right? Now, that was a hassle for small companies to start. If they want to build an app, they will need a team for Android app development, for iOS app development, and also they would need a team for web app development as well. Now, hybrid application development comes with a solution for this problem. What they do is, they give you one code base that you can run on all of these multiple platforms. And React Native is one such framework developed by Facebook for that. So how do we start building apps on React Native? So this course can be approached in two ways. For absolute beginners who have no idea about building applications for mobile, they can take this course and start learning and diving deep into React Native. And secondly, people who have experience in legacy technologies in mobile app development, such as Android development with Kotlin or Java, and iOS development Swift UI Objective-C. You guys can also take this course and learn hybrid app development using React Native. So how do we get started? What are the ways we can approach this learning process? So in this playlist, in this lecture series, we're going to be building the UI of Instagram, okay, the home page of Instagram. We'll have the header, we'll have the story section, and then following that we'll have the feeds, and then we'll have a bottom navigation also, right? So we'll be just building this one page. Now, what is that going to achieve? Styling and creating components inside React. Now, what is component? We'll come to that later. So let's see how we are going to approach this. There are two ways we can start developing apps on React Native. Okay, one is using something called as Expo Go, and the other one is React Native CLI. So we'll come in detail for the about this in the later series, but we'll be using Expo Go for our series here. The reason is Expo Go for React is very developer friendly, very beginner friendly to be frank, and people who are starting off, they'll be better, they're better suited with working in Expo rather than using React Native CLI because of all the complexities that React Native CLI is bringing. So how we can distinguish this is, I'll explain it in simple terms. Okay, take for example, you making a dosa at home. So there are two ways you can make dosa. One is you can buy dosa batter from the supermarket and you can cook it in your pan. Simple, plain and simple. And the other option is you can get the rice, you can soak it, you can grind it, you can create the batter at home and then make dosa, right? There are two ways you can make dosa at home. Now Expo Go is the first way, where you buy the dosa batter from the supermarket and then you make the dosa. And React Native CLI approach is the second way, where you have to create the batter yourself. Now, since we are just learning out, we'll be using Expo Go right now, and in the future series, we'll be using React Native CLI, right? So let's see how we can get started on creating our first application in React Native. So we are going to need a few tools, to start this development process. First one is what we'll need as a code editor. What is a code editor? I think most of you all will be familiar with the code editor. It's a platform which helps us write code, basically, plain and simple. And we'll be using something called as Visual Studio Code here. As you can see in my screen here, I have already installed Visual Studio Code. I'll just open it up here. If you are not installed it, you can just download it plain and simple from this link over here, right? You can go ahead and download the latest version of Visual Studio Code. And following that, we need to install a few other things as well. One is Node.js. We'll come to the intricacies of this later, but now you can just plain and simple install Node.js. Now when you go to the Node.js website, you'll get two options here. One is the current version and one is the version just before that. Try to install the version just before that because it will be more stable and will cause less issues in the long run, right? So try to install the version just before the current release version, right? Now, once you have installed Node.js and then Visual Studio Code, you can start developing using React Native. Now, this is the React Native official documentation. You will need to refer this, various times in your development life cycle, right? And we'll also be going through this documentation because learning to read the documentation is a very important part in learning to develop any kind of application, be it web, be it mobile, be it any technologies, right? So as I mentioned, we have two approaches in creating a React Native application. One is the Expo Go approach, and the other one is the React Native approach, or the dosa batter approach, or the one you make it from scratch approach. So we'll be using the Expo Go approach, right? And this is the quick start guide on creating an Expo Go application using React Native. Now, after you have installed Visual Studio Code and Node.js, you can go ahead and refer this documentation. I'll be providing all the links in the description. Following that, you can open up your terminal and execute this code. You can just copy it directly from here like this and paste it over here. All I did is change the name of the project. Here it is mentioned awesome project. Have changed it to Instagram UI since we'll be building a Instagram UI application, right? Now press enter. Expo Go will be an application in Expo Go will be created. Now this may take some time on various devices depending on your network and other issues, but you can wait, it will do its job. You don't have to do anything there. So as you can see, we are done with the installation of npx create a project, right? Now we'll move on to the next command. So what we are doing here is, so for people who are familiar with the command line, codes, cd will help you get into a folder, right? So here the folder name was awesome project. So they did cd awesome project. What we'll do is cd our file name, which is Instagram UI. Now as you can see, we are inside that particular folder we have created. Now this is the command that is used to start an application. So let's try running this command and see what we get. Now, as you can see, I got a QR code on the screen, right? And there are various commands here. Let's go through what is going on over here. Now, Expo Go. What is the difference? How does Expo Go make your life easier? I gave an analogy of the dosa batter, right? Now, dosa batter comes in a package. You bake that package, you make the dosa. End of the day, right? That's all, simple. The same way, how you buy a dosa batter, you need to install an application in your phone. Be it an Android phone or iOS phone, you need to install an application to run the Expo Go application. So the app you create will be run on that app of Expo Go. Now let's take a moment here and see what is going on. As you can see, there's a QR code over here, right? Now what does it do? As I give the example of the dosa batter analogy, right? Where you go to the supermarket, you buy the dosa batter, you break the packet and you make the dosa. So here, that dosa batter packet is this Expo Go application. As you buy a dosa batter from the supermarket, you need to install the Expo Go application from Play Store and then scan this QR code using that application, right? Now, you can do it two ways. Either you can run it in an emulator or a simulator, which will be run on your device, or you can scan this QR code directly using a mobile app by downloading the Expo Go application from Play Store or App Store. Once you scan this, automatically the application you created will be built and run on your device, right? For this example, I'll be using an emulator because it will be easier for you guys to see the screen if I use an emulator. But you feel free to use your own device when you make the application of yourself. So as you can see, it is mentioned, I can press A to open Android. If I press A, it will start the Android app emulator. There is a press I for open iOS simulator, right? So I'll be running this application on an iOS simulator, but you guys can run it either on an Android device or an iOS device as your availability. So I pressed I and it has started this process. So as you can see, it is opening the application on iPhone SE 3rd Gen. Which device, which is the device right here, I think, let's see, yeah. So this is an iOS simulator and this is where our Expo application is being built right now. Now once we have this code running, I will show you where you can, how you can output this code in Visual Studio Code and how you can start editing on that. So what it is doing right now is it is installing the Expo Go application on the simulator, and once it installs the Expo Go application, and then only it will be able to run the application we are writing on top of Expo Go. As you can see, it has asked me to open Expo Go application, and in the background you can see that Expo Go app has been installed in my simulator. I'll click on open. So since it's the first time installing, it will take some time to load the project. As you can see, it's loading all the project files. So it is giving me all the details. You can go through this. Click on continue. So this is the endpoint at which it is running with the port number. Now I'm going to close this, and that's all. You successfully build and run an application using React Native under Expo, right? So what is this text here? Open up app.js to start working on your app. Where is this coming from? You didn't write it, right? So where is this coming from? So to get to that, we'll then now open Visual Studio Code. So VS Code is a code editor that we have installed. So let me open up a new window. So this is the app. This is something that you will be getting when you first install Visual Studio Code, right? If you don't have it already installed, this is the window you'll be getting. Now you have an option called Open over here, right? Click on that. Now you need to redirect to the place where you have created your project. So I'm going to the folder where I have created my project. I'll click on open, and that's all. Now the code has been opened in Visual Studio Code. As you can see, there are a few files here. We'll go through them one by one. Now if you open this app.js file right here, you will see a small text. Open up app.js to start working on your app, right? And this is the same text that you're getting on your simulator as well. Now this is how you know that this is the app you built, because if I can edit this, I can go ahead and edit this text to say your Instagram UI app and just simply save it. It will make that change reflected over here as well. So it will do that change on the fly. It will do the change live. You just make a change over here, it will make the reflect the change over here. So that's how you can start building applications using React Native under Expo Go. It's plain and simple, that's all. You need to install 3 things: Visual Studio Code, Node.js, and then start installing using Expo Go. Now I did this on my simulator, but you can do it using your personal device. Just scan the QR code. In the terminal window, we have a QR code over here. You can simply scan this using your device, and this application will be opened up right here. But before scanning that, you need to download the Expo Go application, right? So to summarize what we did today, we came to know what is React Native. How can we build apps in React Native? There are 2 ways: the Expo Go way and the React Native CLI way. And we started developing using the Expo Go way, and we built an application. We installed few things. One was Visual Studio Code, which is our code editor, and then following that we installed something called as Node.js, right? And then we just simply started developing the application. Now I'll provide all the links for Visual Studio Code, Node, the documentation, Expo Go, everything in the description below. You can follow along. And the next video will be starting with the UI creation for our Instagram UI app. So don't forget to follow and subscribe.